Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel. Happen to be totally blind since birth. Talking about Spider-Man, the animated series, Season 2, Episode 4, Neogenic Nightmare, Chapter 4, The Mutant Agenda. This premiered on September 30th in 1995. It's Episode 17 of the series overall. Spoilers ahead. If you haven't watched the episode, I'd advise you to do that or you're going to get spoiled. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. So, when it comes to crossovers, the only one I remember watching before Spider Man crossed over with X Men was that old Jetsons meets the Flintstones thing. They rented it when I was going to school for the blind around age 6. I was going to one of their summer camps. I went to a public school most of my life, but I did go to some kind of summer program in Austin this particular summer. I mean, that was the only crossover I remember watching before Spider-Man and X-Men. So this blew my mind because we didn't get stuff like this on 90s TV very much. I mean, it happened a lot in the comics, of course, but this blew my mind when it aired. I would imagine it's because I found out about it the day it aired. I wonder if I'd found out about it a week in advance. Well, I wonder if I would have been as flabbergasted. Probably. I would imagine so. But I caught the TV spot like I would say an hour before it aired. So it just hit me from out of nowhere. And I remember wondering how in the world this was going to affect what was going on in Spider-Man's life. I'd hoped that they were going to get all of the voice cast from X-Men, and of course they did. I mean, because when you saw the TV spot for the first time, you heard Cal Dodd as Wolverine having it out with Spider-Man. I didn't know what was going on, but the episode starts out with Spider-Man being terrified by his condition because I mean the further it's progressing, I think the more scared he's becoming. I mean, he's spending time with Mary Jane. He's doing what he can to keep his mind off of his mutation disease. But, you know, when the episode starts, he's flashing back to Dr. Connors telling him, you're changing into something that won't be human. And you get the sense that he's replaying this over and over in his head because it's got to be terrifying to think, well, what if I lose all sense of who I am? What if I black out? It's probably going to be horrendously painful. When is it going to happen? What's it going to be like leading up to it? You know, so he's found out about Xavier's school, and he's like, well, there's only one man that can help me. I mean, Xavier's, I would imagine, a pretty popular public figure, and Peter being Peter, I mean, he knows who he is. He keeps up with current events. He has to, for the sake of the Daily Bugle, for the sake of his job. And the scene where he arrives at the X Mansion was very surreal. And I got to say, it was pretty cool because you have to have that scene in a crossover where, you know, the characters don't know who this guy is. They're not sure why he's there, and Spider-Man just kind of sneaks into the mansion, and you've got the defenses that are targeting him. And then Wolverine comes out, and he's begging Spider-Man to make one wrong move. He really wants to have it out with this guy. I mean, Logan is, of course, very territorial. And, you know, he doesn't really care why Spidey is showing up to the mansion. He's just like, yeah, you need to get out of here. On second thought, I just want to beat you up. So, I mean, that's kind of what's going on there. And then you've got the others showing up. And it's so cool that they were able to get everybody from X-Men the Animated Series to be in this. And this two-parter, I want to say, takes place during X-Men Season 4. So it's, you know, it's after, I would imagine it's after the Dark Phoenix saga because, of course, Jean is here and she's fine. You've got Cyclops. He's not in this episode very much, though. He says a couple of lines, but not too many. I mean, you have him ordering the other X-Men to stop Spider-Man as he's kind of running through the mansion. It's kind of chaotic because everyone's trying to figure out what he's doing. I think Spider-Man is trying to find Charles, and in the meantime, he's got all the mutants trying to chase him down, and he winds up in the danger room, and it reminds me of the one of the first scenes. Well, not one of the first scenes. It is an early scene in X-Men, Night of the Sentinels, where Jubilee's in the danger room, and in this case, though, it's Spider-Man. Gambit's left the training program on, and he was fighting Sentinels. So I love that scene quite a bit because you have Spider-Man going up against a few Sentinels. Of course, the other X-Men show up, and Storm does her Power of Lightning announcement. And Spider-Man can't help but, I guess, kind of mock that. He's like, Power of Web Shooters, get real sticky. And it's one of my favorite scenes because I love the attempt he makes to be all dramatic, but he's just like, what's going on with her? I'm gonna jump in on this too, but he kind of, well, verbally falls flat. I mean, I think he's kind of like, what the heck is she up to, announcing her powers here? This is kind of cool. I want to try that. So of course things do end up with Xavier showing up, and he's able to calm everyone down. Logan's wanting to continue where they left off before Spidey escaped. And of course, you have Xavier telling Spider-Man, well, I'm not able to cure mutancy. And it reminded me of The Cure and Come the Apocalypse. I'm like, yeah, Peter, don't say cure around these guys, because to them, or to most of them, being a mutant isn't like being a disease. And you have Wolverine. He's very offended by this. I wonder if this is after the Nightcrawler episode. Because, I mean, yeah, Wolverine has his bad days, but here he's like, yeah, well, watch your mouth. Being a mutant is a gift. And then, of course, Spider-Man is hot under the collar because this is not just developing powers. He's going to, he believes he's probably going to lose all sense of who he is when he mutates, because he's going to be inhuman, and he doesn't want to hear no for an answer, and so he feels like he's wasted his time, and he decides to leave. And, I mean, Xavier's apologizing that he can't do anything for him. I mean, I think Xavier is still very compassionate as to Spider-Man's condition. Beast, though, being Beast, he's also showing empathy like Charles. And he decides to pursue Spider-Man and see if he can't do anything, because he knows a guy by the name of Herbert Landon who works for the Brand Corporation. I think he runs the Brand Corporation, actually. Yeah, he does. And so eventually he finds Spider-Man and tells him, hey, maybe he can help you. And Wolverine doesn't understand Beast. He's kind of taken aback by Beast wanting to help Spider-Man to find a cure. He's like, man, what's going on with you, Hank? This isn't like you. And when Beast said, well, what makes you think you know me so well? I was like, what are we going to learn here about Beast? Because, I mean, up to this point, I didn't really know of Beast's past. As I say in so many videos, I can't just go out and read the comics. So, I mean, in the meantime, as if Spider-Man's mutation wasn't worrying him enough, Hobgoblin is creeping around, and he's trying to, he wants to spill Herbert Landon's secret. He knows Landon is working on something that will eliminate mutants because, well, Landon is one of those lovely individuals who would probably fit very well into the Friends of Humanity. He wants to eradicate all mutants, and so he's kind of come up with this method to have their cells turn on each other and destroy them from the inside out. Hobgoblin has somehow found out about this, and one of my favorite scenes is when he's meeting with Landon at this warehouse, and Landon gives him this briefcase. It is not the money that Landon promised him. It's a bomb. I think Hobgoblin knows that this guy is undoubtedly up to no good, and he escapes the big explosion. I like that Kingpin is in this a little bit. He's wanting Landon to create him an army of super mutants. I would imagine at this point to go up against Silvermane, because you have Wilson having to worry about Silvermane and what he's up to. So, I mean, this would probably fit into that timeline, of course, because we're in season 2, and the last time we saw Kingpin, he'd launched an attack on Silvermane. So I was always thinking, well, maybe he's going to use these soldiers that Landon's going to make for him to hit Silvermane's headquarters again. But, I mean, we don't really see too much of Fisk in this episode, but I like that it's setting up some things that are going to happen in season 3 between Fisk and Landon. So this is kind of, we're seeing these two working together here. And I like how Alistair is, he's trying to be the voice of reason to Fisk and be like, you know what, you don't really need to trust this guy. I don't trust this guy. You shouldn't trust him. Kingpin's like, well, you don't trust anybody. Then Alistair tells him, well, yeah, well, I'm usually right. I like how confident Smythe is. So you have Landon's goons. They track Beast down, and they capture him because Landon needs someone to test out his mutant obliterating serum, and he's going to have this big convention for the media. He's going to basically tell them, well, he's going to lie and say what he's been working on. He's just attempting to study mutation. That's what he tells them. But of course, he has a hidden agenda. And Beast is captured before the big meeting of the minds. And the scene is, of course, chaotic because Hobgoblin shows up there, and he's out for revenge against Landon. He's threatening him. I would imagine there were a few people that heard Hobby talking about Landon and their arrangement, and he's telling him that his fee has been quintupled, and the entire building is, I think it's collapsing because I would imagine a few well-placed pumpkin bombs from Hobgoblin. Spider-Man tries to get everybody out. You have this quote-unquote mysterious telekinetic force that holds the ceiling up long enough so he can escape. I think when I watched this for the first time, I don't know if I suspected his assistant Genevieve being a mutant. I didn't really think too much of that. I think I was just trying to drink all of this in because there was just so much going on. I was surprised that they threw Hobgoblin into the mix. So it was really cool to see the next couple of scenes, because you have Wolverine. He's looking for Hank. He knows that Hank has gone off to find Spider-Man. Hank never came back the night before, so naturally Wolverine being Wolverine, he's suspicious that Spider-Man had something to do with it. He heads out to where that altercation had occurred, and he sniffs the air, smells Spidey sense the unknown assailants, and then he's like, oh well, it's all Spider-Man's fault. I'm going to track him down. I'm going to make him pay. Wolverine is just being Wolverine, and he's out for a fight. And you have Spider-Man tracking Hobgoblin to the Brand Corporation, because he's trying to stop him from taking out Landon. And we almost get a scene at the end of the episode, I think, where Spidey's about to unmask him, and I was like, oh man, is this going to be where we figure out who he is? But of course that doesn't happen. You have Spider-Man cornering Hobgoblin. He manages to deprive him of his glider. He gets him to reveal that, oh yeah, Landon's not the golden boy he claims to be. He's out to destroy all mutants. And I think right before Spider-Man can unmask Hobgoblin and really, look him in the eye. You've got Wolverine showing up, and of course he's assuming that Spider-Man has he was in on the whole capturing Beast thing. And these two are about to fight, and I love how the episode ends, because you have Hobgoblin, he does manage to reacquire his glider, and he just hurls a pumpkin bomb, and that's how the episode ends. So you have this bomb hurling, it's being thrown at Spidey and Wolverine, and we get a massive, massive cliffhanger. I thought it was going to be a one-off episode, but I remember when the second full act started, I was like, I really hope this is a two-parter, because how can you cram this much, goodness into one single episode? So I mean, I was glad it was a two-parter. At the same time, I did not want to wait a week to find out what had happened next, because I mean, one of the other things that we learned about was Landon, he shows up before the end of the episode, and we find out that he and Hank worked together, because at one point in time, Hank wanted to cure his progressing mutation. So yeah, when X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past had come out, I'd already seen this episode, and it actually went about like I had imagined it. Beast was, I think he was blue. I don't think he had fur. But when he made this serum, and when he I guess took a swig, and that is how he accidentally furthered his own mutation. I guess I don't remember how it happened in the movie, because I mean, I only seen them, I think, twice a piece, so it's been a while. But I remember when the films came out and when that particular scene took place, I was like, oh yeah, this is very similar to what was described in the Mutant Agenda. So you have Landon telling Hank, well, hey, remember that research you started? Remember you trying to cure yourself, and then you accidentally made yourself even more of, I forget what he says, even more of a freak of nature, even more of an abomination. Well, I'm going to use what you started to destroy your kind. And I forgot to mention that Landon is voiced by the late, great David Warner. And I think one of the first films I'd ever seen David Warner in was A Christmas Carol. I think it was the 1984 version starring George C. Scott. He was Bob Cratchit in that. So, I mean, I'd seen it when I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 the first time. I was a really little guy, but the voice stuck with me. So when David showed up in Batman the Animated Series before Spider-Man, I think I saw him before I watched this episode. He was Ra's al Ghul in Batman. So here he is as Herbert Landon. He must really enjoy playing bad guys. I loved whatever the late great David Warner was in. I was always captivated by his performances, because he really just nailed whoever he was portraying. One of my favorite Star Trek The Next Generation episodes was the 2-parter Chain of Command, in which he was a very sinister Cardassian, and this guy just pretty much tortured Jean-Luc Picard throughout the entire 2-parter. And I was like, oh wow, that's David Warner. He was Herbert Landon. So I'd seen this guy in quite a bit of stuff over the years, and he just makes one heck of a bad guy in Spider-Man as well. So I give the episode a 10 out of 10. I think it was one of my all-time favorite crossovers. This was way before we got the Avengers in theaters. And I really do think it still holds up, especially because Mark Hamill's back as Hobgoblin too. I love whenever he shows up in Spider-Man. Gotta love the goblins. Be he Hob or be he Green, either one. I always love when these guys show up in Spider-Man. So yeah, next time we're going to be talking about Mutant's Revenge. And I cannot wait to get into that one as well, because we get more mutant chaos. And boy, do we ever get mutant chaos in the next episode. More of Hobgoblin cackling and throwing bombs and all that good stuff. So be here for the review of Chapter 5 next time. I sure hope I'm not forgetting anything. Oh well, if I am, I'll probably mention it in the next one. So until next time.
Stop taking video.